Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 13.4 Beta 4 has been out for a few days now, and I've been using it on the normal 11 Pro Max that I normally use, and my iPhone 6s Plus also has it installed. So I wanted to talk about the normal things that I do with a follow-up, such as performance, battery life, and any issues that I'm having and issues you're having based off the YouTube community poll. And then we'll read some of your comments a little bit later and talk about when the final version of iOS 13.4 will be released to the public. Now, the first thing is the only issues I had at all with iOS 13.4 Beta 4 was settings lagging on me. So, for example, when I went into settings, sometimes I just couldn't scroll here. It would sort of lock up and then it would free itself after a few seconds. Now, I've seen that a couple different times. I completely forgot about it because it happened at the beginning, and then it actually happened a few hours before I started making this video. So I went into settings, tried to scroll to check something, and it just wouldn't move. So now it's working fine, but it's really intermittent and hit or miss. Now, as far as anything else, well, I've actually had no issues with LTE, Wi-Fi, or anything else. Some of you have, and actually mail has been pretty good for me as well. But we'll talk about more other issues in a little bit. Now, performance on all of these devices has been good, and this is the oldest supported device, the iPhone 6s Plus, and performance has been pretty decent on all of these. In fact, most people that were having issues, it was not with performance whatsoever. So people that were having issues with this particular update, it was more with some issues with lag or battery and things like that. So in general, the performance, we'll wait for that to load. There we go. Performance is pretty fast given the age of the phone. And if you're playing games, don't expect any changes as far as performance from the previous beta. Now, if you're coming from iOS 13.3.1, there may be some improvements with performance on this one actually. So everything seems to be much smoother. Now, as far as battery, it's going to vary depending on how you use your phone, of course. But let's go into settings here and take a look at the battery. And battery health for me is 100%. Now, this is the phone that I've been using every single day, except for a couple when I was testing the iPhone 11, for example. I've used this every single day since it came out. So this is my main phone, and then I use others on the side, but this is the one I use the most. And the battery capacity stays at 100% with me charging it all night. I have separate videos on that as well. Some others may disagree, but I find that that seems to work best, and I've had every iPhone and charged it that way, so it seems to work well for me. Now, as far as battery health changing with an update, well, that's specific to it actually checking for the battery health every time it updates. The actual update does not affect the health. Now, let's take a look at the last 10 days. I haven't actually looked at this since doing this video, so let's go ahead and take a look. And yesterday, you'll see I had 3 hours and 39 minutes of screen on time, 4 hours and 22 minutes of screen off time. So a lot of screen off time listening to music, and I only used a little bit over a quarter of my battery. So if I was to continue using this for 100% of its usage and just continue using it, not plugged in or anything, I could easily get to 12 hours of screen on time. So I've had no issues with this particular update, and I've heard a lot of good things with the exception of a couple older devices. But let's talk about the bugs you've been reporting in the YouTube community poll. And the first thing is people are having issues with iMessage. People are saying it's lagging or not activating. So I've seen a few complaints about that, and it is a beta, so there will be issues. But if you continue to have issues, make sure to submit that in feedback so Apple can actually put that together and then prioritize what's most important. Now, others are saying they do still have that rotation issue. I thought it was fixed for most people, but you'll see if you have a plus-sized iPhone, so a 6S Plus, 7 Plus, 8 Plus, you'll be able to rotate the home screen. Otherwise, rotation seems to be fine, and it was fine on my iPad as well. And so I had zero issues on my iPad Pro that I use alongside with this iPhone. So I've had no problems with iPad OS or anything. Now, some people are having issues with notifications not showing up. I don't really think I've seen that. They're saying it's either slow or laggy or not showing up. I've actually had no problems with notifications on this update. And then finally, people are still having issues with mail, with selecting all and deleting them. I've actually tested this out and not had an issue with my mail, but some people are having it. And I have very few mail issues now. In fact, I haven't noticed any with this particular beta. So I was using Spark, now I'm using this one. So We'll see what happens in the future. Now, as far as battery is concerned, most people say it's great, according to the comments, and we'll talk about those in a moment, but most people are saying battery is great, with the exception of some of the older phones. The most complaint that I've heard on any of the other phones was the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus, and there's only a few people mentioning that in the comments, so it seems to be pretty hit or miss, but even people with the 6S or 6S Plus are actually seeing improvements, so it just depends on what your device is, how you're using it, but generally updates affect all the phones fairly similarly. iPhone 7 has been a little bit different, but for the most part, it's about the same. Now, before I talk about the YouTube community poll and take a look at some of the comments, I wanted to talk about when 13.4 will release to the public. So iOS 13.4 has been through 4 betas, and it's likely that we will have a beta 5, but right now with things up in the air with different events getting canceled and things like that, it's hard to say what Apple's going to do. I had really expected this update to come out at the end of the month, around the 31st of March, but right now it could come out this coming week, or it could come out in a few weeks. It's really hard to say what's going to happen as far as the update is concerned, but it looks like it's fairly close to final. Most bugs are fixed, with the exception of the few that I mentioned, and even in the final build, they'll refine that as well. So I would expect probably beta 5 on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday of this week, and then maybe the final the following week, but it's hard to say. We could see the final as early as this week as well. Let's talk about the YouTube community poll and some of the comments. So let's go into the YouTube app, and if you go to my channel, there's a community tab at the top if you're not familiar with this. Unfortunately, it's not available on iPad yet, and hopefully they'll bring that along, but it's available on any phone or computer, so you'll be able to get it there and then vote on the community poll. Now, it seems like people are less and less interested in betas, so I'm not sure if I should continue doing the follow-up community polls for beta updates, but let me know what you think about it in the comments below. With this particular poll, there was 5.5K votes, or 5,500 votes, so I really appreciate everyone that voted, and there was 110 comments, and that's where I got all the information about your experience. So I sorted all of that, and here are all of the issues that were mentioned. I actually take stats every week. Here's all the issues that were mentioned, and here's all of the devices people mentioned in the comments that you're using. So there's quite a few different devices and things, and that gives us a general idea of how it is for everyone across all those devices. Now, with this poll, 17% of you said it was great, that were running the beta. 2% said it was terrible, so that's a really good sign. That's very low. And only 5% said okay, but some bugs. So I tend to combine terrible and okay, but some bugs. So 7% of you had a few issues with it. 62% of you are on iOS 13.3.1 or older, and 14% are on Android. That number has gone down since the last poll. And thanks for voting on this, even though it doesn't pertain to you. I just like to include that so everyone can chime in and let me know what they're using, since I do cover Android updates regularly as well. Now let's take a look at some of the comments. iPhone XS Max here, no issues so far. I had one app crashing, but it was just updated and now all is fine. iPhone 11, solid battery, no glitches, very responsive. Screen on battery life is about 10 hours for me. What a difference from my previous iPhone 10. No particular bugs. Raise to wake didn't work properly a few times, but everything working great apart from that. iPhone 8 Plus. Your choices do not fit my answer. So you're either using BlackBerry or Windows Phone, I suppose. I'd be curious to know what you're using, and I would love if you'd comment here and let me know. And let me know what choice would fit your answer so I can actually add to the poll if need be. It's overall okay, but I have freezing again. It happens when I have 10 to 12 apps running on the background. On Beta 3, I didn't have it. Battery life is okay, but not perfect on my XS. But iPadOS is amazing, smooth and amazing battery life on my Air 2019. And RAM management is something I didn't mention before, and that's because no one seems to have an issue with it. Only a couple people mentioned it, and I've had no issues with it either. So it seems like RAM management is much better, so apps staying awake in the background when you go back into them. Excellent, no hiccups, running it on both my XR and 2019 iPad. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Notification issues with slide to manage, iPhone 11 Pro, locking up on my iPad Pro 10.5. My battery isn't as good as it was on 13.3. I find myself charging my phone once a day instead of once every day and a half. I'm using iPhone 11. I used iPhone 11 Pro Max. The problem is I go home, use my Wi-Fi, and my mobile data is on. I don't know why the iPhone uses my mobile data. I go to the Apple store. They say there's no problem, maybe some settings or your home Wi-Fi is not long. I go home, reset on my phone. I have a problem. Can you tell me why? If you have it like I have it here in the upper right, where you have cellular data and Wi-Fi, you're good to go. It means it's going to use Wi-Fi first, even if it shows your signal. Now, if it's not showing you connected to Wi-Fi here, then you may need to adjust your settings or Wi-Fi settings and try and reconnect to it. Otherwise, if you have all of those, it's going to default to Wi-Fi instead of cellular unless you're having an issue with Wi-Fi. iPad Pro 10.5, it restored the ability to use my Apple Lightning to Digital AV adapter, HDMI. It did not work on the last beta. And that's good to hear. And that's another reason I tell people, hold off if you're worried about things not working properly, because betas are for testing and may have weird things like that. So when the final is released, all of those features should work again. So far on my iPhone 7 Plus, it's been great. The bug in the About section in settings is fixed and RAM management is good. I have one problem. When watching YouTube, when I receive a phone call, the whole phone freezes for 10 seconds and I have to reopen YouTube. Other than that, everything else is great. And thanks for the compliment. iPhone 8 randomly freezes and locks up and having to force restart. iPhone 11 Pro Max and iPhone 11, good battery life, no problems. Beta 4 fixed the really annoying issue for me in the Messages application where it would lock up and freeze up when I had in Beta 2 and Beta 3. Beta 4 has definitely been flawless, great performance and battery. iPhone 11 Pro Max. iPhone 10, it's been more or less just fine. However, my Wi-Fi has been disconnecting and reconnecting randomly since I updated. And a smaller issue is when I peek a notification from Twitter, for example, tapping it sometimes doesn't actually open the app. The last one is quite a rare issue though. I'd say overall it's been okay still. Beta 4 seems to be running quicker and less buggy on my iPhone XS and iPhone 11 Pro Max. I've noticed better battery life and performance. I'll read a couple more. iPhone XR took several tries to install. Safari loads most websites very slowly. Otherwise, it's good. I had that same install issue on my iPhone XR as well. They did fix it, though. It took a couple hours. On my iPhone XS, battery life is great, ending the day at 10 p.m. with 10% battery left on 5 hours of screen on time. But a bug where the Apple Store or App Store will open then force close. Otherwise, great update. I'm running it on iPhone SE, and I'm not sure if this is a problem with YouTube or with iOS, but my Wi-Fi connection drops. Then I have to refresh or toggle it on and off Wi-Fi to fix it. That's actually an issue with YouTube. I find that happens with me too. It doesn't matter how good of a Wi-Fi connection you have. The YouTube app sometimes will do that, and you have to toggle it on and off. It doesn't actually drop, but the connection in the app drops. So there's something wrong with the app, and hopefully they fix it soon. It's been great on my Pro Max. I've been getting 10 to 12 hours of screen on time. And that's it for this particular beta. Now, iOS 14 being shown in June at the Worldwide Developer Conference, or WWDC, I still expect to happen regardless of if they cancel the physical event or not. Hopefully they don't, and we don't need to, but it looks like if they do cancel it, they can still live stream it. Apple has enough employees, they can fill the Steve Jobs Theater and show the new features and things like that, and then just make it available to download for beta testers. So I wouldn't expect it to really affect any of that unless they're having other issues and the situation changes. But hopefully things are better by then. Otherwise, I would still expect the software to continue as normal, and hopefully we'll just see a streamed event. I would expect that for Google I/O as well, and all of these other events that are being canceled that could normally be done just virtually anyway. So hopefully it doesn't affect any of that, and things change a little bit in the future. But as far as iOS development and things like that, and iPhones coming out, iPhone 12, hopefully we'll have plenty of them in September, and things will continue as usual. But let me know what you think about that in the comments below. Now, if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, of course, I'll link it in the description as I always do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.